Hey there, it's Simon Hurley, and in today's video I'm going to be showing how to do some really cool watercolor effects with my inks, whether it's stamping with water to lift off the ink and kind of bleach it a little bit, how to stamp and get a little bit of a watercolored effect, and then a super simple background that you can create straight to paper with my inks, and then how to use some of the fun images from the new Mythical Mermaid stamp set to layer on and finish off your card really nicely. Let's get started with our ink blending here. I'm going to start off with the Simon Hurley Create ink in Bee Sting. I'm going to grab my blending tool here. We can start our blending, so I'm going to ink up the tool. I'll tap it off to the side a few times to get rid of any excess ink, and then we can start our blending here. I'm just going to go in with the Bee Sting color. Starting on the edge here, I'm just going to kind of blend it out just a little bit. And there's going to be some harsh marks right at the edge, and that's just where you've kind of ended your blending. But don't worry about that, because when we add new colors, it's going to kind of overlap and blend that area out, and you won't even be able to see it. So I'm going to do this in 3 different areas on the card with this color. I'm going to go in the side here. When you go in with the same color a couple times, it kind of ties it throughout the whole project. And then I'm going to blend it kind of near the bottom as well. So I'll bring that color down, and I fade it out just a little bit as well. So once we're done with that, I'll go in with the next color. This is Slippery and Wet, and it's a super bright yellow color, which is going to look great with the red. So I'll just go in next to it, and I'm just overlapping that, and that's going to help those colors kind of blend together. It's a translucent dye ink, so when it goes on top of each other, you'll see kind of an orange color forming there in between, which is really awesome. It creates a beautiful blend. So I'm just going in here and blending this out. And again, I'll go in several areas on the card, so I'm going to go in this bottom corner, and just blend that out. And when you're blending with your inks, these are super high quality inks, but you also want to make sure your cardstock is really nice quality, because the cardstock also depends on the, the outlook of your card when you create it. So if your inks aren't working super well for you, try a different cardstock. And here, I'm using the Simon Hurley Create Stark White cardstock, and this is my absolute favorite cardstock. That's why I chose it. It's a super bright white when you start, and it also has it's a really thick cardstock, which is great for creating cards. You're gonna have a really nice base. And it also takes the inks really well. So instead of like sitting on top of the surface and not really blending, it goes right into the cardstock and gives you a super rich and bright color, which I really love. And here I'm not super worried about the blending, because we're gonna go on top with some water. I just want to lay down lots of color so we can have a really cool result in the end. So just going in here, blending out Clear Skies. This is my nice blue color, and it's going to create a green when you go over top of the yellow, and it'll create a purple when you go over top of Bee Sting. So I'll just blend that out a little bit. I'm going to add it over here as well. And then usually there's a little bit of space in the center left. I'm going to go in with Overzealous. This is my super bright green color. It's going to look really great in this card. I love these colors together. You'll probably see me using these colors quite a bit, but you can definitely have fun and kind of experiment with the different colors in the line. There's 12 colors of inks so far, and they look really awesome. When you blend them together, I find that most of them coordinate really well, so there's not much guesswork that goes into the colors. Okay, so once we're done there, you can kind of blend it out a little bit more and go back and forth if you want to make sure it's really nice and smooth. But here it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to lay down a ton of ink. I'm going to go in with this Cling background stamp from the Simon Hurley Create collection. This is the Flower Garden stamp, and I love this one. It's got some super awesome flowers and fun details in there, but it's a really nice solid stamp too, so you're going to get lots of surface area, which you want. I'm going to flip this over. It's really high quality red rubber Cling stamp. And then I'm going to go in with the Distress Sprayer, and I'm just going to mist over top of this stamp. You get a nice fine mist on the surface there. You don't want there to be too much water, not big drops, but just small little droplets over the surface are going to give us great results. And then I'm going to flip it down with this side that we've inked down on the stamp. Then I'm just going to go around and press every area where we want it to kind of stamp down on our card there to transfer the water really nicely onto the surface. And these inks are water reactive, so when I lift this up, you're gonna see that starting to kind of form in there, that flower design. Now if you add more water, it's gonna give you a more watercolored effect. If you add kind of this amount of water, it'll just kind of bleach the surface a little bit, which is really awesome. And as I go in here, I'm gonna go in with the Ranger Heat tool. I'm just gonna dry this. You don't need this to get the effect, but it just kind of speeds up the process and dries it a little bit, and will keep the water from kind of reacting with the color. But it creates a really cool effect. It bleaches that color, and wherever that water was, it makes a lighter color, which is super cool. And on the packaging of the ink pads here, we actually have the lighter color shown here, so you almost get two colors out of the ink pads when you play with water, which I think is so much fun. So now you've seen how we kind of lift up the color. Let me clean off the surface here. The cool part about these inks is all you need to do is just clean it up with a little bit of water, or you can go in with kind of a baby wipe to clean up the surface. But it's not gonna stain your craft sheet or any of your stamps, which is really great. So I've shared how to lift the ink off of the surface. Now let's talk about how to stamp with the inks and give a really cool watercolor effect that way. So I'm gonna go in with the new Simon Hurley Create Seafloor background stamp. Look at all the fun detail in there. They really do an awesome job with getting all those little tiny details in there with the little chalk pen there. I think it looks super cool with all of these fun hand-drawn little plants in here. So what I'm going to do is I'll grab a piece of Simon Hurley Create Stark White cardstock again. I just formed this one into a card base, cut it down, and folded it. And then I'm going to start with our stamping. So I'm going to go in with, let me start off with the lightest color first. I'm going to go in with the Overzealous. I'm just going to start inking up my stamp here. And I'm going to do it again in like 3 different sections. That's kind of how I like to put the colors to make sure that it carries on throughout the card. So just going to ink this up, just do it in different sections. And then I'll go in with Slippery and Wet, which is our bright yellow color. And again, I'm kind of color blocking off these sections onto the stamp. You don't need to overlap your stamp pads. I'm just going to kind of do it in sections. And I leave a little bit of space in between because the colors are going to kind of move and blend as you work and with water. So I'll go in with Clear Skies, that nice light blue color. And then if you want to add a darker blue, I'll go in with Remember Me. And don't worry, with the darker colors, you can kind of stamp over top. It's not going to really contaminate the ink pads. If you're worried about that, if you get a little bit of green on top of the blue pad, you can just go in here and wipe it off. You'll see a little bit of green comes off there, and that's just a way to clean your ink. You can totally lift off a little bit of that color, and it'll return back to the original color. Just try not to do that with the yellows because it'll definitely stain the ink pad. Okay, so now we're going to work with a little bit of water. So I'm going to spray this down with my Distress sprayer, just a fine mist. And depending on how much mist you put down, depends on kind of the more watercolor look of your card. So if you want more detail, spray the stamp a little bit less. If you want less detail and more of that water to show through, spray your stamp just a little bit more and you're gonna get more of a watercolor look. So when I lift that off, you can see that fun, kind of flowy watercolor look. You lose a little bit of detail in the stamp, but I absolutely love how that stamps down. It looks like an under the sea background, which is totally what I was going for. And these would work perfectly with the Mermaid stamps from my line. This is the new stamp set, Mythical Mermaids, and you can have tons of fun kind of stamping down these images and coloring them in. There's even a unicorn and a bear that you can turn into a mermaid, which is so much fun, and all these little elements to go along with them. Okay, so lastly, I'm going to share a really super simple background with the inks. This is just straight with the ink pad, and it's so easy to do. So I'm going to grab the Remember Me ink pad, which is the dark blue. I'm going to go into here, and I'll just press that down onto the surface of the cardstock. The more pressure you add, the more surface you'll get. If you add a little bit less pressure, you'll get some white space and that fun texture of the ink pad. And then I'll go in with the Clear Skies ink pad, which is the lighter version of the blue. And I'm just going to go in here and stamp it down. And I offset it just a little bit. This is so much fun to do straight to paper, and you can kind of use it as your own stamp, which I think is so much fun. You can create a whole background with all different colors and use this kind of as your own stamp and texture, which I think is so much fun. Now, one more thing that I did to this to look kind of like bubbles and kind of react to the color is I'll go in with the Distress sprayer with just straight up water, and I'm just going to kind of not pull the trigger the whole way, just a little bit, and you can get some little water effects here and there. You can see it's really reacting with that water, which I think is so much fun. It kind of bleaches that color just a little bit. And to dry this, I'm kind of an impatient crafter, so I like to heat set things. I'm just going in with the Ranger Heat It tool. This kind of speeds up the process. You don't need to do this to get it to react, but like I said, I'm a little impatient, and it just dries it really quickly. And there we go, we have that finished background. I told you it was super simple, but it really packs the punch. It's super fun, and it's a great spot for an image to sit on. Now to finish off one of the cards, I'm going to go in with the Mythical Mermaid stamp set. This one is so much fun. Of course, you got the guy and girl mermaid, and then you have the two little animals you can turn into mermaids, which I think is so much fun. I'm going to go in here and show you how to stamp these and line them up really easily. So let's go in with the bear. I'm just going to go in and peel this right off the backer sheet. It's super easy. And these are clear photopolymer stamps, so they're going to stamp really nicely on the surface. I'll set this off to the side. So I'm going to start off with the tail image and place that onto my acrylic block. I'm going to grab the archival ink. I'm just going to start inking this up. And this is a waterproof ink, so it's going to work really nicely when we go in with our watercolor. I'm going to stamp this down onto the surface, give it some good pressure so it stamps nicely. And then I'm going to go in with the bear image next, and I'm going to place that on the acrylic block. And again, I'll ink it up with the archival, make sure it's got lots of ink on there. And then I can stamp this down. And to do this, I like to get really low to the surface, and you can see where that stamp is going to line up on there. You can see exactly when it lines. And then you can stamp it right down and give it some good pressure. I like to start with the tail because it's a little bit easier to see where the bear lines up since it's that top image, but you can really go either way and it's going to line up nicely there. So I'll lift this up to the camera. You can see that looks like one image there. It's so much fun with that little bear, and you could totally switch the bear out with the unicorn as well to create a really fun mermaid, which I think is super cool that we did those separate, so you can really play with it and have fun with what you want to create. Okay, so now let's go in with our inks and color here. I'm going to kind of swatch out the colors onto my craft sheet. So all I need to do is take the ink pads and smoosh them onto the craft sheet. That's Clear Skies. I'll move into Overzealous, which is the green color. Slippery and Wet, which is that yellow color. Then I'll go into Bee Sting, nice red, and then Triple Berry, which is my purple from the line. And these are gonna work great with water, so I've grabbed my detail water brush and I can start with our watercoloring here. I'm just going to go in, and I'm working on Distress Watercolor cardstock, the smooth side, so it's going to work really well with our coloring here, and it just gives us a little bit of playtime when we're coloring this in to lay some ink down and kind of move it around if we need to for shading and blending in the colors. So I'll just wipe off the brush. The cool part about a water brush is you just kind of wipe it off either on your hand or on a paper towel, and you can easily switch the color from one to the next. So I can go into Overzealous here and do some really quick and easy blending, which I love. And I'll go into Slippery and Wet, which is that yellow color. Blend that together. Then I'll move into Bee Sting. And in between it kind of creates new colors, which is so much fun. So here it's kind of creating a little bit of an orange color in between those two. And then last here, I'll wipe that off, and I'm gonna go into Triple Berry to kind of finish off the tail. So I left these tails with no designs in them. So the super fun part is you can kind of paint them in with whatever colors you want. If you want a stencil over top to create your own texture on the tail, it's super fun. You can kind of create whatever designs you want. So there's the start of my watercoloring. You can watercolor the bear in with that Gur color from my line, which is that nice dark brown. You can see here is the finished project that I've created. So I've just cut this out, added it onto the fun background, and then I stamped Have a Fantastic Day, which is from that Mythical Mermaid stamp set. So tons of fun with this card here. It's a little bit more simple. And then I went in with the background. You can stamp that background. That's the sea floor background stamp with the same lifting watercolor technique that we did. And then I stamped those two mermaids from the Mythical Mermaid stamp set and painted them in as well. So this one is a little bit more detailed, but it's so much fun. And then this sentiment comes from that same Mythical Mermaid stamp set. But I just love these two. And here, I went in over top of the tail and did a little bit of work with the gel pen. So I went in with the white gel pen. Here I painted, colored some flowers on here. And then on this one, I just did some scales. So I wanted those open so you guys can create your own little designs in there and really have fun with drawing if you want to, or just leave them plain and kind of paint the textures inside there, which is so much fun. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing this video with all the fun water background techniques using some of my new stamps and some of my Simon Hurley Create inks. And be sure to click the links down below in the description box to shop all of the Simon Hurley Create products. And I cannot wait to see what you guys create with them. Have a great day. Bye.